Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to the Fragrance Well. I think we got a very interesting show for today. So, not too long ago, a couple episodes ago, I did a fragrance video basically looking at the concept of fragrances being worth it. In other words, the price of admission, so to speak. So the fragrance is worth it at its price. I can't fully remember if I would say it was worth it at full retail or not. I want to say that is what I said, but this is kind of a follow-up to that video because there were some really good comments that were a part of that video, and they kind of helped me put this subject matter for today into perspective. And it's not even just my video. I've seen other comments and other videos or other subject matter, other discussions being had on other creators' platforms. Kind of that led me to want to make this video right here. And the subject matter is, let's say we're in an alternate universe. This is a Thanos Snap episode. Boom. There are no discounters. You have to buy fragrances at full retail because they are not available in any other way. Sure, sales can still happen, but at the end of the day, you got to pay for them at full retail. I want you to ask yourself this very important question. Would you still even be a fragrance collector or enthusiast if you had to buy every single fragrance at full retail? Let me be the first to say that I don't care who it is, unless they basically have endless amounts of money to blow on fragrances. Everybody's fragrance collection would look completely different if they had to buy fragrances at full retail, myself included. I'm gonna demonstrate that a little bit with some of the fragrances I got for today's video. But I would also say that I imagine that many people within the community, especially people that have come in recently, not a dig at them, but let's just be real, I don't think a lot of them would be collectors, if I'm being quite honest. I don't think they'd be enthusiasts because there is an affordability component to that. And you know, let's just be honest, you know, fragrances are not cheap. They are a luxury to life. Certainly there are ones that you can get even at full retail that are not necessarily going to break the bank, but considering what you can get the majority of fragrances for on discounters for versus what they actually cost, many of our collections would certainly look a lot different because I don't think would be as willing to spend money on some of these fragrances at their full retail price. Now, I can say confidently I would still be a collector, and the reason being is I started my collection without knowing discounters existed. We're gonna go into that a little bit more in a second here. But ask yourself this question. Put it down in the comments below if you want to. Would you still be a collector if you had to pay for every single fragrance at full retail? Now, let me just say this is not a dig at discounters. This is not to say that I think we shouldn't have discounters. I love discounters. Let me just be perfectly clear. I think it is just smart financially to get the best product you can at the best price possible. That's with anything, not just fragrances. But I do think there is a positive, an upside to a world where you only could pay for fragrances at full retail. And the biggest thing is, you would only spend money on the stuff you actually truly love. Just take one house in particular, one very popular house, the House of Parfums de Marly. You can get most of their fragrances for a really heavily discounted price. Even though it's still not cheap at that discounted price, it's better than paying for it at full retail. I imagine a number of people would only maybe have a couple of fragrances from that house if they had to pay for them at full retail. That would certainly be the case for me, and I don't even necessarily have a ton of them. Anyways, a little bit of a longer intro, but I needed to kind of set the stage for this video. So we're gonna go into it with now some fragrances to kind of help illustrate this point. Got 10 fragrances to help me out with this. Let's get into it, but before we do, please remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please hit that bell icon, enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so to start it off, the first 5 fragrances are fragrances I paid full retail for. First one is coming from the house of Jimmy Choo. This is Jimmy Choo Man Intense. Jimmy Choo Man Intense. Now, for all the OGs in this video, the guys that have been watching me pretty much since the channel started, you probably already know that this is actually the first fragrance I bought with the intent of starting a collection. This is number 1. This is the first one. And I bought it at a Dillard's at full retail. That was, what, 98 bucks or something like that. It was around 100. Let's just say it was 100 for easy math. And listen, I don't regret the purchase. I didn't regret it at the time. I did learn later on that I could have got it for like maybe 30 bucks or something like that. So I was just like, are you kidding me? I had no idea. But like I said, when I bought it, I had no idea about FragCom at large. I didn't know about discounters. But I made a conscious decision before I bought this scent that I wanted to start a collection, and I was fully willing to pay full retail for whatever I wanted to add. But it just means my collection would have grown a lot slower. I certainly would not have been wasting, at least not as much money, on fragrances I didn't necessarily, really like. And that's not to say that I have done that, but let's just be real. With discounters, you're probably going to end up buying fragrances that you just like, you know what, I should have never bought that. I barely wore it. I maybe wore it 2 times, put it back on the shelf, and never touched it again. I've got fragrances right now in my collection that are going to be like that. This is kind of a barbershop scent. It's spicy. It's got a little bit of a fruity melon-like vibe. It's kind of musky, woody on the dry down. I'm not going to spend too much time on the fragrances themselves in this video, but it's a fragrance channel. I'm still going to talk about the fragrances. But yeah, bought this at full retail. Today, I obviously would not do that, but I don't regret it at all because I was fully intending to buy all my fragrances for my collection at full retail because I didn't know about discounters. Once again, from the house of Jimmy Choo, this is Jimmy Choo, Man Intense. Next one's coming from the house of Louis Vuitton. This is Imagination. Louis Vuitton, Imagination. Now, I just recently got this. I told the story within the last couple of videos of how I got this. I kind of already knew about the scent. I had gotten my nose on it, but I had never tested it on skin. And once I tested it on skin, that's when I really saw how great this scent is and why it's so popular. Because I don't think on the tester strip that really does this scent justice. But yeah, I love this stuff. There's a tiny dent in this. You can tell the bottle's not full, basically. I've only had this fragrance for about 2 weeks. That is the fastest I've ever put a fragrance down in terms of it being full to not being full out of every fragrance I've ever had. So this one is definitely a successful purchase, but I paid full retail for it. Overall, I know Louis Vuitton is not widely available discounted, but I do know you can get them at a discounted rate. Typically, you're going to be buying it from someone who is selling them individually. So it is possible. But obviously with that, you got the potential of scams. And you know what? I should have mentioned it in the intro. That doesn't mean that there is a world where you couldn't buy a fragrance directly from someone, but that comes with its own risk. I tend to not do that too often. But obviously I had no problem paying for this at full retail even today, even though I know I could have probably found it somewhere for a cheaper price. But I was like, you know what? I'd pay full retail for this. I think it is that good. And if we're being honest, as many of you have told me that how much you really love this scent, I would think you'd be willing to pay full retail for it too if it's really that good. If anything, you would probably buy the larger bottle so you have plenty of juice to go through. And remember, good thing about these, when you buy them from Louis Vuitton, you can get them refilled for life without having to pay for a full bottle again. So for me, this one, I would have no problem buying in a world where you could only get fragrances at full retail. Once again, from the house of Louis Vuitton, this is Imagination. All right, next one's coming from the house of Goldfield & Banks. This is Purple Suede. Goldfield & Banks, Purple Suede, and yes, once again, I bought this at full retail. Now this one I actually don't know, and I didn't even check before I started this video, if this is available on discounters. As far as I know, it's not. I mean, this is not one of their more popular fragrances, but I do know there are many from this house you can absolutely get heavily discounted, particularly the more popular ones. The reason I bought this at full retail, I was at a Goldfield & Banks event, and out of all the fragrances that were featured at the event, this is the one that captured my attention the most because it was the most unique. It was the most interesting. I tried it on skin. I wasn't sold on it immediately. I tested it on skin, walked around for another 30 minutes, and by that 30-minute point, I was just checking it out again, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but there's something special about this one for me. This is super unique. I gotta have this stuff. And I think I did check to see if it was on discounters. I didn't see it, so I said, screw it, I'm just gonna pay full retail for it. Quick overview of this fragrance. It's basically a lavender and leather fragrance. The lavender has a little bit more of a fruity kind of blueberry vibe. Someone said they get more of a grape vibe out of it. I could understand that as well. Because of how unique this was and how much it really captivated me, I wanted to just keep smelling it. I wanted to have it, so I paid for it at full retail. I'm not saying you have to do that. Let me also add that on. This is not saying that you need to pay full retail for anything. If you don't think any fragrance is worth it at full retail, then don't pay for them at full retail. Not one. That is your decision. But I am asking, if we lived in a world where you had to pay for them in full retail, would you even be a collector at that point? Once again, from the house of Goldfield & Banks, this is Purple Suede. All right, next one's coming from the house of Le Labo. This is Tabac 28. Le Labo Tabac 28. This is another one. I've told the story of how I got my nose on it and instantly knew I needed it. I was blown away by this fragrance, and I still am, and I'm loving it even more now because it's starting to kind of develop a little bit more. I'm getting some elements to it that I didn't quite get when I first got it, so I love when fragrances do that. So this is tobacco and rum, like rum soap tobacco. It's a leafy tobacco, a little bit of a smokiness in there. There's some smoky woods kind of adding to that smoky element of this fragrance, and this is just beautiful stuff here. Now, as far as I know, good luck finding this one on discounters because this is a city exclusive from the House of Le Labo, where there's only certain times of the year that you can get it outside of Miami. At least that's my understanding of it. If you want to get it at any point in the year, you actually have to go to the Le Labo boutique in Miami. I don't know where it is. I'm just familiar with it, but I've actually never been to it myself. But last year when I got this, it was around that time frame where you could get it outside of Miami, and I actually bought it right here in Orlando. Blew me away. Very expensive fragrance. I mean, look, I would not suggest anybody just up and buy this. Definitely don't blind buy it. It's not that it's not blind buy safe, but that's just too much money to just spend on a fragrance just because somebody like me or anybody else talks it up. But for me, this was absolutely worth it. I was like, I have to have this. And also because I didn't really know what the stipulations were on getting it, I said, let me just go ahead and grab it because I would probably regret it if I didn't go ahead and get it that day and then maybe tried to come back before that period ended and they're sold out of it. Once again, from the House of Le Labo, this is Tabac 28. Totally worth it at full retail for me. All right, next one's coming from the House of Tom Ford. This is Oud Wood. Tom Ford Oud Wood. I've mentioned it on the channel before, but I'm gonna say it again. This one here is a kind of an asterisk on this list because I actually bought this before I decided to be a collector, before I decided to just kind of buy more fragrances than I would ever need. This is me when I wanted to really just experience and get fragrances that were much higher quality than anything I had had beforehand. So that's why I bought this one, and I obviously was not a part of the community at all. Didn't know there was YouTube. I didn't know there was fragrance content on YouTube. Didn't know about the communities on Facebook, Instagram, any forums. I didn't know nothing about any of that. So I bought this fragrance at full retail, the 30 mil of all things, because that was all I knew about. And you got to think about it. I was basically, we could call it a normie at that point. Most people, this is how they buy their fragrances, and they're willing to pay for them at that price. Now, would I pay for this now at full retail? Honestly, I don't really know, because I am kind of considering the fact that I have to use the knowledge I have today. I don't know what I would have done in the past, to be honest. I could have been like, yeah, I want that one day, and then maybe change my mind the next. Monetary situation could have been different. I'm gonna speak on what I would do today. Today, I might, if I was gonna buy this at full retail, I'd buy a bigger bottle. I wouldn't buy the 30 mil. That's just not really a good value at the end of the day. But yeah, I did pay for this at full retail. I don't regret it because, like I said, that was before I even started collecting, and certainly way before I knew anything about discounters. Once again, from the House of Tom Ford, this is Oud Wood. All right, guys, so these next 5 fragrances are fragrances I did not pay full retail for, and as of today at least, I would not ever pay full retail for. First one's from the House of Xerjoff. This is Naxos. Xerjoff, Naxos. Oh man, did I just piss off some people there? I know this is a lot of you guys, one of your favorite fragrances, but I've talked about how, I do like this stuff, but I've just gotten my nose on other tobacco scents that I simply like way more than this. So as a result, for today, I probably would not pay full retail for this. What does this go for? Like $330 for the 100 mil? I don't think this comes in a 50 mil, so just 300 something bucks for it. Now, let me be honest. 2 years ago, when I kind of first was able to get my nose on this, I might have bought it then at full retail because I was blown away by it. It's not that I don't think the scent is worth it. Remember, that's gonna kind of be up to you. You have to kind of make that determination for yourself. As many people say that they love this fragrance, I would think they'd be willing to pay for it full retail if that was the only way they could get it. But maybe I'm wrong about that. But for right now, I wouldn't pay full retail for this. I simply don't wear it enough. Like I said, I've had this for a while now, and you can see there's barely any juice out of it. And in terms of tobacco fragrances, I got a lot of other ones I would wear over this one pretty much any day. Once again, from the House of Xerjoff, this is Naxos. Wouldn't pay full retail for it now. All right, next one's coming from the House of Parfums de Marly, and we've got Layton. Parfums de Marly's Layton. Yes, I would not pay full retail for this today. Now, when I first got my nose on the Layton DNA, I actually spelled Layton Exclusive first, and I was blown away by it. And then I eventually got around to this one and the same thing. So, you know, maybe 2-3 years ago, I probably would have paid full retail for this. But as of today, I wouldn't. And I would imagine that I bet there's a lot of people that are kind of with me on that one. Probably on both sides of the fence with this one. I know this is a absolute love for a lot of people. They've had a lot of success with it. So I would assume that would mean if you had to pay full retail, you would certainly get this fragrance. For me, from the House of Parfums de Marly, there's a lot of other scents I would pay for over this one. As far as I'm concerned, this is like my second least favorite out of the what do I have, 5? I got 5 out of the 5 that I have. Herod, I'd probably pay full retail for. Halton or Haltane, I would definitely pay full retail for. So there's other ones I would rather have first, and because, you know, 300 plus bucks at full retail for these fragrances, I don't think I could justify having like 8 of them with paying full retail for them. So this one I probably wouldn't have. Once again, from the House of Parfums de Marly, this is Layton. All right, next one's coming from the House of Nishane. This is Sultan Vetiver. Nishane, Sultan Vetiver. All right, so this is not a dig at the House of Nishane, but just my honest opinion on this. If Nishane was not available on discounters, particularly for what you can get them for on discounters, I think as far as the community is concerned, this house wouldn't be that popular. Tell me I'm wrong, because these are not cheap. They also go for like over $300 at full retail for the 100 milliliter bottles. I actually like the 50 mils better, so maybe that would change my mind. The reason I'm talking about Sultan Vetiver in particular, I think this scent is masterfully crafted. I think it's wonderful, but if I'm being honest, it's a very particular scent that I would only wear at certain times. This is not one that would get a lot of wear out of me. As you can see, it does not have a lot of wear. I haven't emptied this bottle out. Now, you don't need a lot of sprays either, but this is something I wouldn't wear anywhere near as often as many of the fragrances I have in my collection. So I wouldn't spend the money on it for it to just sit on the shelf. You know, if anything, I'd maybe get like a decan of it, because I do really like this scent. I think this is amazing vetiver fragrance. I still call it the vetiver fragrance for kings, which is why I think the name Sultan Vetiver is a masterful name for this fragrance. Once again, from the House of Nishane, this is Sultan Vetiver. Next one's coming from the House of Creed. We've got Silver Mountain Water. Creed Silver Mountain Water. Yeah, you were probably thinking I was going to say Aventus. That's just too much of a layup. I'm not going to talk about Aventus in a video like this. Silver Mountain Water, I chose to talk about because I really, really do love this scent. This is wonderful juice here. There's only a handful of fragrances from Creed I feel like I want in my collection. I don't have all of them yet, but there's only a couple I feel like I really need to have. This was one of them. But yeah, you know what these fragrances go for at full retail. They are grossly overpriced. I double checked on this one in particular before I added it to the list, because this list was actually kind of hard to put together. This is $420 at full retail. There's no way. I mean, it's just, there's no way. Look, I got this bottle at Aura Fragrance for under $200. That's the only reason I jumped on it, because this is readily available at like maybe $220, $240. And I was like, you know what, one day I'll maybe grab it, but I still just feel like that's a lot for this fragrance. And the fact that they had it under $200, that's the only reason I jumped on it. So obviously, if I was waiting for a better discounted price, already heavily discounted price, that shows right there I probably wouldn't pay full retail for this. And let's just be real, from the community standpoint, if we had to pay full retail for every fragrance we get, Creed would probably not be that popular of a house in this day and age. I understand these used to be a lot cheaper. I don't know what the prices were. Somebody can say it down in the comments below. I know got a lot of guys that watch my videos that have been collecting way longer than me. So once again, from the House of Creed, this is Silver Mountain Water. All right, last but not least, coming from the House of John Varvatos, this is Artisan Pure. John Varvatos Artisan Pure. Now, I mean, even at full retail, this is just gonna be what, slightly over $100 compared to some of the fragrances I've talked about today. You would think if we had to pay stuff at full retail, be more willing to buy scents at that price range. Well, the reason I chose to put this on this list is because I have other fragrances that give me similar usage that this one does, and frankly, they're much higher quality than them, and I would just rather have those because I reach for those over this one pretty much any day. Real quick, let me give my philosophy if I had to pay full retail. I would only get stuff I absolutely love, and I would get the highest quality stuff that I could reasonably afford to get my hands on. That means I wouldn't even waste time on the one that I think is not as good as this one over here that I'd be willing to pay for. Now, if every other fragrance that, you know, kind of gives me what this gives me was say like $1,000 more than this, that may not make a lot of financial sense. I'd probably just go for that one. But the point remains the same. And ultimately the overall theme of this video is, even with discounters, I think it's the best thing you can do for your collection and your collecting is to focus on getting things that you truly love, or at least have a strong like for. Do not waste your money on a bunch of fragrances that you don't really care for and don't wear. Because you have to consider this, even if you buy nothing but affordable fragrances over time, that still builds up to, let's say you spend $10,000 on fragrances. $10,000 on one fragrance versus 100, 200 fragrances that equal $10,000, that's still $10,000. If you're gonna spend that kind of money on something as mundane as fragrance, you might as well get stuff that you really, really like. Once again, from the House of John Varvatos, this is Artisan Pure. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. A bit of a different topic today. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this concept and, you know, the questions I asked earlier. And also let me know, what is a fragrance that you would pay full retail for today? Some of you were going to say nothing. That's fine. That's still an answer. And what are some fragrances that you didn't pay full retail for, but you have, that you know you wouldn't pay full retail for? Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Thanks again for watching all the way until the end. Really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. And I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.